Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mayor Rich Hill with the Village of Round Lake Beach. We're at the Culture Center in Round Lake Beach tonight for our Fireside Chat. Today we're going to be talking about housing. We're very lucky tonight to have three panelists with us, which I'll introduce in just a minute. Lake County has three major housing organizations that work in the Village of Round Lake Beach and throughout the rest of Lake County. Between them, they provide numerous housing options for renters and buyers, home improvements, and foreclosure prevention services. Our program today will introduce you to these organizations and provide a broad overview of the housing opportunities available to our residents. You'll also take advantage of our county's experts to talk a little bit about affordable housing in general. First, I'd like to introduce our guest speakers. We have Rob Anthony. Rob is the Executive Director of the Affordable Housing Corporation of Lake County. Prior to joining AHC, he served as the Executive Director of the Community Partners for Affordable Housing, and immediately prior as a Senior Planner for Lake County Planning, Building and Development Department, where he is responsible for administering local federal programs for the homelessness and affordable housing. He serves as chair of the Lake County Continuum of Care for the Homeless and as a board member of the Lake County Coalition for Homeless. There's quite a bit more, but in essence of time here, I think we'll kind of keep these a little brief. We also have David Northern tonight. David is with the Lake County Housing Authority. Over the span of 20 years, David has established a distinguished career in federal housing assistance programs, including urban planning and policy development. As the Executive Director and CEO, David is responsible for administering professional oversight in the planning, directing, and coordinating the Lake County Housing Authority's varied and complex housing and community development programs while ensuring compliance with the HUD regulations. LCHA is a HUD high-performing agency, and fiscal responsibility includes a $32 million budget and $50 million in assets. He oversees a program of 60 staff, of housing inventory of 3,451 housing units of vouchers, a family self-sufficiency program, a family unification program, a comprehensive housing counseling program, being sponsor agency for Illinois' hardest hit fund homeowners emergency loan program. That's a mouthful. And created the AIM North Development Corporation, NFP, while serving over 11,000 citizens of Lake County. David's educational background includes a Master's of Public Affairs from Indiana University and a Bachelor's in Science, a Bachelor's in Science and Accounting from Ball State University. We also have with us tonight Mary Ellen Tamase. For over 23 years, Mary Ellen has worked for and with nonprofits, government entities, and for profit corporations in Northern Illinois suburbs to develop affordable housing programs and projects. She first came to Illinois in September 1993 as the Executive Director of the Lake County Affordable Housing Commission and Corporation. In September 2008, she became the President of the Lake County Residential Development Corporation. This 38-year-old non-for-profit has developed and persevered over 1,362 units of rental and homeownership affordable housing in 43 locations. You can tell by their biographies they have a great wealth of knowledge in housing, and I look forward to our question and answer session tonight. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
I have a few questions here for you. We'll start out with a question for all of you here. Let's begin by having each of you take a moment to tell us about your organization and the services you offer. I could do a brief synopsis here before I go a little more in depth. David?
Well, I'll start first. First, I want to say thank you for inviting me out to speak today about housing. Again, I'm David Northern, Executive Director, CEO of the Lake County Housing Authority. And Lake County Housing Authority, we're the fourth largest housing authority in the state of Illinois. We're currently a high-performing organization on both of our major programs. Fiscal responsibility over $32 million. And we've had one audit finding since 2008, which was pretty minor. Currently, we're in the major development process of building 220 units of affordable housing in the city of North Chicago. But currently, we operate, as you mentioned earlier, 3,500 or so vouchers and units throughout the county. I'm excited about what my program offers to our citizens here in Lake County, and I'm excited about some of the smaller programs that we offer, like our Choices program, which helps families move into opportunity areas.
Great. Rob?
So the Affordable Housing Corporation is a nonprofit, HUD-certified housing counseling agency and community housing development organization. The history of the organization, back in the early 90s, the county was very concerned about the lack of affordable housing options, and they developed an Affordable Housing Commission to try to address housing issues in the county. It was quickly realized that as they developed policies and programs, they needed to create a nonprofit entity to administer some of these programs. So in 1993, AHC was incorporated as an independent nonprofit to carry out some of these programs. Originally, AHC was administering down payment assistance programs, which we still do. But since then, our programming has really expanded to a much broader range of services to address a broader range of housing needs. So generally, our programs fall into 1 of 5 categories. We have a housing counseling and education piece with the down payment assistance. So the goal of that program is to really provide housing education classes, individual counseling with first-time home buyers to prepare them for successful and responsible home ownership. We serve about 225 clients a year through that program. And with that program, we do offer down payment assistance where home buyers can get up to 5% of the purchase price and down payment assistance to help purchase their first home. The second area is our owner-occupied rehab area. That's a program for people who are low to moderate income and already own homes but can't afford to make critical home repairs like furnaces, plumbing, electrical improvements, things like that. They can get up to $20,000 in assistance to make those repairs and forgivable grants. The third area is our acquisition rehab resale program. Through that program, we acquire a lot of vacant, blighted properties, rehab them, and then resell them to low to moderate income households. The fourth area is our rental assistance program. It's a relatively small program. We serve about 45 households per year through that program. It operates in some ways similar to a Section 8 voucher type program. And then lastly, we have a foreclosure prevention program where we provide foreclosure prevention classes and individual counseling. Last year we served about 350 people through that program. Of the people who come through the program, our fiscal year just ended June 30th. Of the people who had their files closed out in that year, 51% of the people who came through the program were able to keep their homes through some kind of loan modification or principal reduction or other type of refinance. So we can get into those in a little more detail later, but that's sort of an overview.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Mary Ellen?
LCRDC, while we're a small organization, we've been around for 38 years. And we've been developing both rental and home ownership opportunities over that period of time. We've created over 1,300 units in 43 locations in Lake County. So we're spread throughout the county in terms of the properties we own. We develop our own housing, and many of those homes are single-family detached homes that we acquire, rehab, and then rent to low to moderate income households. We also own multifamily housing, but we also do joint venture projects. We work with for-profit developers to develop affordable housing in opportunity areas, again, in Lake County. And we should probably define what an opportunity area is. That's a neighborhood or an area where there's little or no affordable housing. And that helps create diversity throughout the county and helps move more rental or move more affordable housing throughout Lake County, as opposed to one location, so that people can live closer to their jobs and and put less traffic on the roads and things like that. So we own properties, like I said, from Barrington to Zion and from Lake Bluff to downtown Libertyville. We own throughout and in the Round Lake areas too. Most of our properties are rental, although we have done some new construction affordable home ownership too.
Terrific. Well, it sounds like you have a lot going on for the Lake County and all the people here, and you've done a lot of good work.
What's unique is that both of these organizations, both LCRDC and Affordable Housing Commission, kind of was birthed through the Housing Authority in a sense. The Housing Authority was handling the aspects of the Affordable Housing Commission, but as more affordable housing and more detail and education was needed, it split off through the county, and then LCRDC was created long ago as the not-for-profit from the Housing Authority that split off. So we're all married at the hip in a sense and working together for years.
It's always good when we work together, get a lot more accomplished.
Exactly.
I got another question. As affordable housing experts, what do you see as the biggest housing challenges Lake County faces for communities looking to provide a range of housing options and for residents looking to buy or rent housing for their family?
Well, I'll start with that. I have, we decided to take different stabs at it. Redevelopment is so important. We have an aging housing inventory in a number of our communities. We was hit hard with the foreclosure crisis, and we didn't have enough money really to come in and totally create change in that environment. We're still looking at the housing bust, not all the way have recovered. So that redevelopment is so important and having units available. As we talked earlier, we talked about is more accepting in various communities out in Lake County to have senior housing, but we know family housing is also important. And so that's one of the biggest barriers that we have right now is to create affordable housing that's for families throughout Lake County. With that being said, I mentioned earlier we're developing 220 units in city of North Chicago. It's a $40 million development where we demolished 125 units of traditional public housing. But we're building 50 senior units and 170 family units on that same site after we purchase some additional land. So in most cases, we don't build like that any longer. We may build 60 units here or 20 units there, or like Mary said earlier, we'll partner with a for-profit developer and make a public-private partnership and have a portion of those units affordable. And then the lack of affordable units in the county, we talked about opportunity areas, and one of the things that we really have to focus on is making sure that individuals have an opportunity to live in places that's affordable. Right now, it's certain poverty and census tracts that you can find throughout Lake County. You can look at Zion, Waukegan, and North Chicago, and some parts around Lake and even Mundelein where you'll find the large pockets of poverty. But our goal with all our organizations is to work hard to create affordable housing in other communities. One of the ways we're doing that is we created a program called Choices. And with this program, it's mobility counseling. What we do is we work with our clients to ensure that they understand what is an opportunity area, how do your family benefit from an opportunity area, and how do opportunity areas work. We have payment standards for our Housing Choice Voucher Program. And so we increased our payment standards to 110% so that families have the ability to live in Barrington, will have the ability to live in Vernon Hills. Therefore, we won't have a large population of poverty concentrated individuals throughout the county.
Great.
Yeah, just to piggyback on what David was saying about housing affordability, the percentage of people in Lake County the percentage of owners in Lake County who are housing cost burdened is 51%, and the percentage of renters is 37%. And housing cost burden is a HUD definition, meaning that you're paying more than 30% of your income for housing. And so, again, 51% of owners and 37% of renters. So 1 out of every 2 owners and over 1 out of every 3 renters are paying more than they should be for housing. So affordability is clearly the biggest issue. And when people are paying more than they should be with housing, that money's coming out of somewhere else. And so they're choosing between a mortgage payment and a rent payment versus health care for their family or food for their family or other things that they might need. So clearly that's the biggest, one of the biggest issues. The other thing I would point out is there's still, the number of foreclosures have gone down dramatically. I think at the height of the foreclosure crisis, there were about 4,000 filings per year. This year, we're looking at more like 1,500 filings, which is great. But there are still lingering effects of the foreclosure crisis. There are still properties that are sitting vacant and distressed, and in a lot of cases, the ones that are still there are the ones that are most challenging to deal with. So they have no clear ownership, or they have so many liens and fines and past due taxes and things like that it's very difficult to financially be able to acquire and rehab the property. So dealing with some of those issues, there are still big challenges facing the county.
We talk about affordability. I know that my mortgage, I think 50% of it is for taxes and insurance. 50% of my mortgage payment, and that has to speak to the affordability.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Marilyn, do you have any comments?
And for us, we focus mainly in the rental market. And so for us, it's a real challenge right now because we see so many people, like Rob said, paying more than 50% of their income for rent. So it leaves very little for others. but it's really difficult to develop rental housing in Lake County also. In many communities, they object to it, and they feel that it will diminish property values if rental housing is created. So that was one reason we took the stance of scattering it throughout Lake County and buying single-family homes and distributing that through through many different communities in Lake County. A lot of people, especially large families, they want to live in a home. We acquired a property from a bank in Beach Park, and the mother was so happy because her two sons, this was the first time they had their own backyard to go play baseball in. And she was so excited to be able that she could look out her back window, out the kitchen, and watch her sons playing ball in their backyard. And for many households, or for many individuals too, you know, a number of years ago, the state was sued because so many people were still living in institutions, and even though because of their disability, and while they could live independently, they were remaining in institutions because there wasn't enough affordable and accessible housing for them. And so the state, with many of their programs, have now made housing for people with disabilities a priority. But the problem is, you know, buying existing homes and making and adapting them for people with disabilities is often a challenge. So the one way we've been participating in that to help people move out in twofold. One is in all of our new multifamily developments, we do a set aside for people with disabilities. In a new 40-unit development that we're doing in Mundelein, we're setting aside 9 units for people with disabilities. And we've worked closely with the Center for Independent Living to help them identify people who can live independently and rent in this building. And it's a lot easier to make an apartment accessible when it's new construction as opposed to taking an existing property. So that's one way that we see, and an important thing that we need to be doing to help people with disabilities.
Great. You know, in Round Lake Beach, we saw quite a bit of decline in rental housing from like 95 through 2007, 2008, when the housing crisis hit, and all of a sudden it started skyrocketing as foreclosures were even being bought by people, investors, and rents at least in the back out. One thing that helped us back in the early 2000s, we passed a multi-housing program where the people who had the leases had to have specific parts in the lease, and there were certain responsibilities they had that helped to keep the bad ones out, and the people that wanted to live here and be in a nice community could come here and live in a nice community. And that helped us clean up a lot of the issues we had. And so the rental's not as much of a problem as it used to be. We still have spot problems here and there. You can never get rid of it.
You're gonna have
Same thing with homeowners.
Yeah.
You know, it's not going to change, unfortunately. But it made a big difference for us, and I know a lot of other communities have picked it up since we picked it up, and hopefully it's helping across the county.
And you guys were a trendsetter in that. And we have a number of units in your city now. So we have about 164 vouchers in Round Lake Beach. Which equate to close to 17% of our inventory in terms of housing choice vouchers. And in public housing, we have about close to 100 units because of Beach Haven Towers. You know, so, but one thing that's unique out of the 164 voucher holders, they equate to $2.4 million in income. So it's not just individuals, you know, the traditional thought process of people on a system, but there's actually workers that's putting back money into the economy. They happen at this point to be renters.
Excellent. Another question. Another challenge I think many people are facing is where to live as they get older, or helping their parents find the right living place and options. What trends are you seeing in senior housing?
Well, I saw your question, and I went back and looked, and I thought it was interesting because I had a woman in my office, and we were talking about housing the other day, and her comment to me was, gee, it seems like as I drive around Lake County, there's new senior housing developments on every corner. And I think the market is responding to the need for senior housing. But since 2006, there's been 1,075 units of senior affordable housing created through the federal tax credit program. And this is a federal tax credit where investors can buy tax credits and invest in housing. And this has been a great tool for us to develop housing. And this is those units are helping seniors with annual incomes of between $32,000 to $36,000 be able to rent apartments. And you have one such development here in the
Oak Hill's
community,
wonderful.
Oak Hill
Oak Hill,
supportive.
yes, yeah.
Yep. And we've been actually very supportive of that, and out of that 1,000 units, we've helped develop 341. Over 200 in Vernon Hills, and then 100 up in Zion of affordable senior rental.
And the same with us. We've, our largest inventory in terms of public housing is senior currently, and we also work with a number of developers and public-private partnership to develop seniors. We have none in Round Lake at this point, other than our senior building, 99 units. I guess that's enough. But along with Oak Hill coming in, but overall throughout the county, we stretched from Wakanda all the way up to Antioch. Down to North Chicago, where we have senior units, and Zion even. So it's a big trend in terms of senior, and I appreciate our seniors. And as the population continually age, we will need more senior and more accessible housing. But one thing that we do see, the biggest problem is that the lack of affordable housing for families.
And with the senior population, I think AHC's biggest contribution towards that is really trying to serve the seniors who want to age in place. And so there's certainly great demand for new construction and assisted living and affordable, quality new units. That's definitely needed. But some people just prefer to stay where they're at too. And so with our owner-occupied rehab program, we can help them make some accessibility improvements in order to help them stay in place. And sometimes that's the most cost-effective option for them. Sometimes emotionally, that's the easiest for them. They want to stay close to support networks and their family and neighbors. And so we're able to offer that. We also do that kind of rehab work for persons with disabilities too. So we will build wheelchair ramps and make kitchens or bathrooms accessible, things like that.
Well, terrific. Yeah, the aging of America has been a problem, and I see it a lot of my friends. Luckily, I'm not aging at all yet, so I'm good. But yeah, it has been a big issue, not only with housing, but with all sorts, with the park districts and all, trying to provide programs and so forth for the seniors as they age, because they're very active still. It's not like it used to be, so that's great to see. Another question. After the foreclosure crisis, we saw a slowdown in home purchases and an uptick in rentals. I mentioned that earlier. That trend is now reversing somewhat, but common wisdom is that it became a lot harder to qualify for a mortgage in recent years. What types of barriers do today's homeowners face when they try to qualify for a mortgage?
Well, qualifying for a mortgage, one of the best things you can do and help yourself to qualify for a mortgage is your credit rating. We're a HUD certified housing counseling organization also, so we work with a lot of clients, both on our program and off our program, to ensure that they can qualify. But your payment history, you have credit utilization rates, ratios, how you use it in your balances. You have your length of credit history, how long have your accounts been open. Sometimes people think about, I don't want to open credit. Early on, if they're not educated, they don't want to open credit, but it's better to have credit when you're looking at terms of purchasing a home. And then you talk about the types of credits you may have, right? If you have a car loan versus, a Old Navy card, the car loan probably equals a little better in terms of your credit rating. You have hard inquiries where you go out shopping. When you're shopping for an item and they can see that you're looking for a car for the last few days, it don't hurt your credit score as bad. But if you go looking for a car and TVs and they run your credit constantly, that's when hard inquiries will really affect your score. So people really need to pay attention to their score, making sure they pay their balances off as soon as possible. And also, when you have a credit card, if, for example, if the amount you can borrow on that credit card is $3,000 and you have borrowed $2,900, it hurts your credit score. So that balance ratio related to the credit, it depends on it. And we find the more education the individual have, the better they can take responsibility toward building better credit and making it more sustainable for them to purchase homes. That's the first thing the banks look at. Do you have income and what's your credit rating? first two major items.
At the risk of sounding self-serving, I would strongly encourage everyone, particularly first-time home buyers, to get first-time home buyer counseling and education. It works. HUD stats show that people who go through first-time home buyer counseling are 30 times less likely to end up in foreclosure. Wow. And so the stats show that it does work. And you know, buying a home is the largest investment that most households are ever going to do. And you know, they don't teach this stuff in school. You know,
and they should.
And if especially if you don't, maybe your parents didn't. Even if your parents were homeowners, they might not have taught you, you know, what all these things mean. What's a housing ratio? What's a debt ratio? What's this property tax escrow adjustment I get every year? And so counseling helps explain all that and what to expect, and really make sure that people are not setting themselves up for failure, because that's not good for them, it's not good for the neighborhoods, and it's not good for the community overall.
I have to agree with Rob. I can't emphasize enough how important counseling is, because it's a maze when you're buying a home. You've got, you know, a realtor telling you one thing, a home inspector telling you something, a mortgage lender telling you something, and you have, you know, and then an attorney telling you something else. So you have all these people that are telling you things that your housing counselor is the independent person who's not going to make some money once you close on the home. That person is the one who's going to be telling you and helping you get through that maze so you can be a successful homeowner and you don't buy something or get yourself underwater or into trouble in home ownership. And they can answer all those kinds of questions for you about the legal documents that you're going to be entering into and the responsibility that you will have as a homeowner. I can remember talking to people saying, but my mortgage lender said my mortgage payment was only going to be this amount. Why am I paying this? Well, again, there's property taxes and insurance involved in that too. And oh, there's something called PMI also, and you know, on and on and on. It's learning the language and ferreting through that maze.
And if it's not the right time for home ownership, the counselors will work with you to develop a individual action plan, and they will help you develop a budget, help you learn how to repair or improve your credit, how to reduce debt, put all these steps in place, and then monitor that plan with you, and then follow up and you know, help you save for more down payment, things like that. And it's not uncommon at all for someone to come in and they're clearly not ready, and you sort of have to convince them that they're not ready, and they can come back a year later and be in a much better position to buy and be successful. And so it's having that patience and you know, working on those action plans.
We had a young lady that graduated from our family self-sufficiency program, working at Abbott, and went to purchase her first home once she, you know, overcame her obstacles and got out of our program. And when she came back to speak with us, she said, I was thinking that just because they said I can afford $300,000 house, that's what I wanted. But thanks for counseling, I didn't have to do that, right? So she picked a more affordable house that, you know, she didn't have to get close to over that 30% of income paying towards your mortgage and housing income.
So if I understand you guys right, then you say, when every time I use my credit card, I actually have to pay it back? That's right?
That's the goal. You know, I think that's a whole different subject, right?
Yeah.
And as far as credit utilization and ratios go, when they look at that, is 25% utilization okay and 50% is bad, or is the lower there's like a sliding scale?
You know, sometimes it depends on what type of credit it is. You know, if you have a mortgage, it's high points. If you have you know, medical bills, they don't hit you as bad on medical bills. Sometimes it depends on what the credit is about, but the goal is to make sure you're making payments on them and you're current on them. You don't want to miss your credit payments. You don't want to fall into delinquency. That's the worst, because you have a certain time frame before you get out of it. You know, sometimes you have these mortgage companies, and they're not doing them as much. They're not doing it as much as they used to do it, but they'll come in and, you know, fix anybody's credit and give anybody a loan, and that's what started our crisis. So many foreclosures. They were, you know, giving people that probably can only afford a $100,000 house, $300,000 houses, you know, giving no document loans where people didn't even have to show information and they can go buy a big house, and you're wondering like, well, how could they pay for it? So The regulations changed quite a bit, which helped us help our clients protect themselves in a better way in terms of trying to make housing purchases that's smart for the family.
Great. Mary Ellen, are renters facing the same kind of challenges as buyers? And what can prospective renters expect these days when filling out an application to rent? And what are the most landlords looking for when they look for renters?
Well, I think that the rental market has become so tight that landlords are taking a lot closer look at doing background checks on potential tenants. And much of what they're looking at now, where they never used to look at a credit score before, they're now looking at credit scores. They're also looking at unpaid utility bills to make sure that there's nothing on your credit report showing that you owe ComEd $500. They're also looking at criminal background. They're doing criminal background checks, and then also evictions. They're looking to see if you've been evicted from a property within the last 5 years. Because there's less units out there these days, they can be a bit more picky on who they choose. We had a single family home that came up for rent in downtown Libertyville not long ago, and we had 50 calls within the first day. And while my staff, we don't look at credit check, we don't look at the credit score, but one thing that we do, because the first thing we ask is, are you income eligible to rent for us? Because we only rent to households making less than 80% of the median income. So one of the things my staff does is look at their debt to income ratio. They look at how much debt they have compared to their income to make sure they're not having to pay more than 35% of their income. Because if they are, we know that that can get them in trouble. So we look a little bit closer on that end to make sure that we're not setting renters up for failure too, that some landlords don't do. As long as you have good credit, yeah, they'll rent to you, even if you want to, rent something that's way past what your limit should be. So I think that renters are having more of a challenge than they have in the past, and being scrutinized more.
I want to discuss the housing cost versus your income. Are you talking about gross income?
Yes.
Okay, so before taxes and all those other good pieces? Okay, just to clarify.
Yeah.
Any comments on that subject?
I mean, one of the things that we find with our clients on the voucher program, is that some landlords are unwilling to lease to voucher holders, right? So Cook County, they have an ordinance that landlords can't deny a voucher, source of income protection in a sense, okay. Right? So we tried to do that for the state, and we have a draft policy in place now that we've worked with both sides of the House. I mean, both sides of our legislators up down in Springfield, but it's a stalemate at this point. So the challenge is not just that we want individuals to be able to move out of Zion, but people in Barrington has to be willing to accept the voucher. In terms of not just a voucher, I mean, you have retirement income, you have other forms of income that individuals have, you have maintenance income. Some landlords won't accept maintenance. So source of income protection for individuals is big in allowing our clients just to get an opportunity. And that's all we say, hey, just give them an opportunity. Check their credit, check their criminal history, check their backgrounds, do everything you want. Don't just say because they have a voucher they can't possibly live in this unit. So.
It's interesting. It's like somebody looking for a job, you can't ask them, do you have a car? But you can't ask, do you have transportation to get here? Yeah. As long as they get to work, doesn't matter how they get there.
Exactly.
As long as they get
it's
there.
On them. Yeah.
Rob, anything?
The one thing I would add is that because the rent prices have gone up so much, it's making ownership all that much more challenging because people are paying such a high percentage of their income towards rent that they're unable to save up for a down payment on their home. And so in that sense, the rental side, we're seeing that a lot affect people when they come into the home ownership programs at AHC.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I guess that would have an effect on that. At the same time, I would think with the rent start getting higher, more people might look at actually purchasing, and so instead of just throwing the rent out when rent's 25% cheaper, it makes sense. When it's only 10% cheaper, I think it's closer to making an investment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
David, the Housing Authority is probably best known for its Housing Choice Voucher Program, often referred to as the Section 8.
Yes.
How does the voucher program work?
Well, it's a three-way partnership. You have, first of all, our voucher program is about 2,900 vouchers throughout the county. And we service all parts of the county except for North Chicago and Waukegan, who has their own housing authorities. Our vouchers also are portable, so individuals can take a voucher and move to Guam, Puerto Rico, Hawaii, as long as they have a housing authority there that's willing to accept the voucher and administer that voucher. But back to the detail of how the program works. It's a partnership between the housing authority and the client. Then it's a partnership between the client and the landlord. And then it's a partnership between the landlord and the housing authority. So it's that triangle effect in terms of a voucher. An individual apply for the program, they have to be eligible, they receive the voucher. We come in and we brief the clients about the voucher, size of units they could afford based on their bedroom size and based on their income, how much of a unit they can afford. And as I explained earlier, our Choices program, we go a little more in depth. Depending on the capabilities of the family, we don't guide them in a certain direction, but we provide them the right information. We talk about where are the good schools at, where are more jobs at, where are ways for transportation. And the family goes out and they locate a unit. Once they locate a unit, and a landlord say they'll be willing to lease to that participant, the housing authority then will come out and do an inspection and make sure the unit meets our qualifications and guidelines to be able to sign a final contract and a lease for that property. We also what we have what we call as project-based vouchers, and Mary Tomasi and her group works with us quite a bit on that, where it's a public-private partnership. For example, a not-for-profit will work with a for-profit developer, and they'll develop housing, and they'll come to the housing authority and say, hey, we need some affordable housing in this complex. And we may add 20 units of 20 project-based vouchers in there. And so it may be an 80 or 70 unit building, but 20 of the units are set aside for individuals with certain types of incomes or with disabilities or whatever. And that helps out a lot to get it in some of these communities, because, if I come in with a building with 70 affordable housing units together, it's kind of a little more challenging, especially if it's family, to get it in. It's even hard to get seniors in there. And not only with our Section 8 program, we have a regional housing initiative where we work with 8 or 9 housing authorities throughout the region: Chicago, Cook County, McHenry, and Joliet, Oak Park, and we partner together and we pool our vouchers so that we can develop great projects in terms of developments in great communities in opportunity areas. And so we don't develop no more units in non-opportunity areas, because we want individuals to have a great success in terms of their living environment. Mary also mentioned earlier about the nursing home effect. So we offered over 100 vouchers to the state referral network, where individuals coming out of nursing homes can receive those vouchers and find acceptable units. Family unification is also another voucher type, where individuals have probably an open DCFS case and their kids been taken away. And we found that it's more cost efficient for the state and for the community if we reunite those families. So we have so many vouchers set aside for families with those type of situations. So it's a pretty detailed and unique program. It's our largest program that we have here in Lake County.
I know the prices of rentals for a 3-bedroom house can vary greatly, from
Yes.
$1,000 to $3,000 a month. Yeah. How do you determine what kind of value the voucher has for the landlord?
Well, we develop, based on the fair market rents in the area, we look at it and we create what we call payment standards. And our payment standards, in some cases, individuals receive utility allowances also. And so a landlord will say, I want $2,000 for a unit. A 4-bedroom unit, our highest payment standard is $1,300, and depending on the condition of that unit, we may not give them that. So they may be outpriced. So the landlords have to understand. As I mentioned earlier, in our Choices program, we went up on our value for our payment standards to 110%. So we pay a little more for units in opportunity areas so people can afford them. But the landlord, it's a choice. Sometimes the landlord say, hey, I want $1,400. And we say we paying 12, and you say meet me halfway, and we say we paying 12, and you say, there's nothing I can do, and I say, hey, we paying you 12, and you say, okay, I want to lease the unit, and a family is able to lease that unit. And we have to protect the client. And also what's important about our program is that HUD gives us a certain amount of money and it gives us a certain amount of vouchers. And they say either you use all your vouchers or you spend all your money. In a community like Lake County, and you have higher cost areas, we'll never utilize all our vouchers, but we'll spend all our money. So those landlords that want high monies, every extra couple $100, that's one whole family we may not be able to serve. So we have to safeguard those monies.
Oh, very good. Any comments?
As a landlord, I try and beat him up on the prices.
Yeah, they all want the prices.
You're the one saying 1,400.
Yeah. But it's important to note that David's right. There's, he's got so much money and so many vouchers.
Yeah.
And we are an agency that we rent to Section 8 voucher holders, and we work very closely with the families that we rent to. So I think, because we kind of go that extra step and we know our families and we work with them, it makes for a successful relationship.
Yeah. It's only a small percentage of our voucher holders that really have problems and issues. Like I said, with 2,900 vouchers, and that program is a $24-25 million program by itself, and to have 6 or 7 major issues in a year, I think we're winning still.
Great. David, kind of as a follow-up here, it's my understanding that the Housing Authority also offers actual apartments for rent.
Yes.
Tell us about those units, and are there any in Round Lake Beach or in the western part of Lake County?
Yeah, so we have overall our inventory is 495 units of apartments and single-family homes. We have close to 300 and so senior properties throughout the county, and 165 single-family homes or townhomes throughout the county, spread throughout. We had 125 units in the city of North Chicago, which we demolished, and we're building that 220-unit affordable housing development that I mentioned earlier. In Round Lake Beach, we have 99 units of senior buildings. For a senior building, that's 55 and up. We go to near elderly. It's easier for us to lease up the units that way, to go near elderly with all the other senior developments popping up. In most cases, the ones Mary Tomasi developed, they're 62 and up. Because of the tax credit regulations, we can go lower because we're public housing, so we go 55, which we call it near elderly. And we don't have any single family homes in terms of the public housing in Round Lake Beach. But however, when a foreclosure crisis hit, we created a program called the Affordable Housing Acquisition Program. And we utilized some monies that we had in reserves to go around and purchase some HUD dollar homes. We purchased those homes, we rehabbed those homes to put them back in the market, help stabilize certain communities. And in Round Lake Beach, we did 6 homes. We purchased 6 homes, and those homes we lease out to anyone, whether they have a voucher or they don't have a voucher. So we have a great home right down in Haynesville, right down Haynesville Road, right across from a golf course, been very successful. We actually worked with the tech campus kids. They worked on that home for 2 years to help develop it. So that's one of our award-winning homes.
That was out great, the partnership like that.
Yeah. I mean, they came. We had a number of homes in our inventory at that time and the money to rehab it. However, the schools were suffering, and the tech campus didn't have the money in their budget in order to purchase land or purchase a home. So I said, hey, we'll give you one of our homes, and we'll let you take 2 years of classes to work on it and complete it. And so it was a great success. The families in there are loving the home and doing a great job.
It's always nice to hear success stories like that. I'm moving on a couple questions here. We're kind of running out of time here. Okay. This is a question for all of you again. Like LC, RDC, AHC, and other housing authorities also acquire properties for rehab, which they then sell or rent. Can you tell us more about that, Dave? You just touched on it a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I just add a little more to it. We want to increase affordable housing. That's part of our mission. And we don't even talk about affordable housing, it's more workforce housing. I like to run the numbers and show that if you look at all my clients, we account for $44 million, over $44 million in income to Lake County. So most of my clients working. And so when we find homes that's in distress or HUD dollar homes, we take an opportunity to go after those homes. At some cases, we may decide to demolish them and land bank the property so we can develop later. And in terms of selling, we haven't done a lot of selling homes for home ownership opportunities as of yet, but that's our mission and our long-term goal is to, as we have 28 homes in our inventory now that's not subsidized homes, and our long-term goal is to allow those homes to be up for sale.
Terrific.
And we really view the acquisition, rehab, resale as a real great program, a win-win-win in the sense that we're going out there and we're acquiring distress, usually foreclosed, dilapidated properties that are an eyesore and a blight. We're purchasing them, doing a quality rehab, so we know it's not a quick flip with a coat of paint. It's a good quality rehab. And then we're reselling the home to low to moderate income households who earn less than 120% immediate income, which is about $90,000 would be a maximum household in order to qualify for the home. So we're cleaning up the properties, we're improving the housing stock overall in the county, and we're creating some affordable housing, quality affordable housing for low to moderate income households in the community. So we're thrilled with doing it. Right now we are working on a project that was funded through the Illinois Attorney General's office. It was part of a national foreclosure settlement suit that the Attorney General had with a lot of the large national banks who were involved in robo-signing and all these types of things that got us into the housing crisis. But through that grant, we are acquiring, rehabbing, and reselling 50 homes in Round Lake Beach and Mundelein. Those are the two areas that we're focusing on. And it's really been a fantastic partnership with Round Lake Beach in the line of credit that the village offered to AHC. So we're able to use that capital. We borrow from that line of credit to acquire and rehab, and then when we sell it, we pay back the line of credit. And it really helps us get more properties done at a much faster pace to have that available capital. So that's been absolutely invaluable to have that kind of partnership. The other piece that's been great is when there are properties that have been a blight for years, we get a call from the village and they say, hey, go look at this property. This has been driving me nuts for 5 years. And so we can help identify some of those properties and do that. So fortunately, with the grant dollars that we have now, the original idea was that we're going after these properties that are particularly bad and other investors aren't going after. And so we expected a significant loss on each house, and the loss on each house that we're taking is a lot less than we thought it would be, which is great because that means there are more grant dollars that are continually recycled, and so we hope to be able to continue to do that type of work at Round Lake Beach for into the future.
Great, and we can thank our village administrator, Dave Kilbane, for coming with that program over 10 years ago. We started our first HARP program, the Housing Acquisition and Rehabilitation Program, through his efforts, and worked out with the bank to get the line of credit, and it worked out tremendously as an individual village to do it. But with you guys jumping in, wow, you just made it soar. It's been wonderful. Yeah,
I think we have about 25 homes that we've done in Round Lake Beach that are either done, currently being rehabbed, or available. I think there are 3 or 4 that are available for sale right now.
Great. Yeah. Mary?
Well, and as Rob said, this program that he has, we also, LCRDC also received money through that, and we're working with the city of North Chicago. And there we've been able to buy foreclosures and single-family homes as well as multifamily units. And it really helps. It's a good partnership. It's a way to work with the municipality to help them through the crisis of the foreclosures and getting rid of the boarded up buildings. And in addition, the city of North Chicago has donated land to us also, so we can do new construction and new single family homes that we'll be building there. So it's a win-win for the municipality. They're donating the vacant land, and we're able to build new houses on that land for them, and then work in concert with the AHC, because they'll be doing the homeownership counseling for each of the families that will be moving into there. So we all can work together and share our expertise to make sure that we overcome some of the blight that is in many of our communities due to that foreclosure crisis.
I believe all 3 agencies are unique in a certain way, but we have some of that crossover appeal where we work together on certain ways. So the Public Housing Authority, we're permanent rental housing, right? But we created a not-for-profit that started purchasing some of the rentals, and then through that we can do some sales. You know, so I think, you know, all three of us together, we work and have a great niche in here in the county in terms of affordable housing and home ownership.
And we like each other.
Yeah, we get along.
We get along.
Yeah, there's really no competition either. You don't want my clients, I don't want your clients.
Well, I have time, I think, for one more question. This kind of goes towards the agency as a go-to agency for Lake County for homeowners facing foreclosure. What services do you offer, and are you seeing a drop-off in the demand at this point? To kind of reference that a little bit earlier, and you can also both comment when Rob's finished there.
Sure. So, you know, as I mentioned, the number of foreclosure filings have decreased, which is great news. We have 2 full-time foreclosure counselors, and our actual caseloads and numbers, despite the number of foreclosure filings going down, have not actually decreased all that much. The percentage of people who are participating in the programs have been going up, which is great because, as I said, 51% of the people who went through the program last year were able to keep their homes. So we do 2 classes per month about foreclosure education. We do the individual counseling, but then we've also partnered with the 19th Circuit Court on a Lake County residential foreclosure mediation program, and through that program, the history of the program is that when there were so many foreclosures, they were really clogging up the court system, and there were a lot of homeowners who were completely overwhelmed with the process and didn't know how to respond, didn't know who to trust, stopped opening their mail, didn't respond to things. And then likewise, there were a lot of lenders who were completely overwhelmed and lost track of properties and asked for the same things 10 times. And it just wasn't a productive, and then it was all kind of jammed in the courts, and people were coming back and back and back, and it wasn't a productive process. And so through the mediation program, it tried to, it puts a legal stay on the foreclosure for a period of time, and it tries to pull it out of the traditional court system and allow our housing counselors to coordinate between the lender and the homeowner to have a more productive conversation and determine some way, hopefully, to do a loan modification or principal reduction, some way to help people keep their home. And when that's not feasible or practical, we also counsel the homeowner on how to leave gracefully, is how we phrase it. And so we serve about 300 clients a year through that program. I also just want to very quickly mention there's another program that started in August of this year, that restarted in August of this year, called the Hardest Hit Program. And through that program, people can go on to the Hardest Hit Fund's website through the Illinois Housing Development Authority. We administer that program on behalf of the IDA here in Lake County. And people who have experienced a 15% reduction in income, whether it's through a job loss or health issue or loss of a spouse, whatever that might be, they can get up to $35,000 in assistance to reinstate their loan if they're past due, and or get assistance with ongoing mortgage payments for up to 12 months while they boost their income back up. So it's a great resource that's available.
Terrific.
And that resource that Rob's talking about, I think that was one amazing type of resource to help people stay in their home, because we know it's more important for individuals and families to stay in their home and not be disturbed. It creates a bad situation for a family and kids, and also it starts the distress of certain communities. We were a hardest hit agency also, along with the Affordable Housing Commission. During a time frame, we decided not to reopen our portal at this time, but during the time we had it open, we helped over 129 households that was in the process of losing their home keep their home, and that equated to close to $2.8 million of money that we received. And for our agency, we're a smaller agency that was doing it, but I can tell you one thing: the Affordable Housing Commission and the Lake County Housing Authority together, we did an amazing job, and probably together we did probably the best in the whole state. Our numbers were pretty high, so we helped a number of family members.
Put in one more quick plug too. Right here on November 9th at 6:30, we're holding a foreclosure education workshop, so to speak, or session for about an hour, where we're going to talk about the Hardest Hit Fund program, another program called iRefi, and some general foreclosure information and be able to help answer people's questions. So everyone is welcome to attend that, whether you're from the village of Round Lake Beach or elsewhere in the county.
Terrific. Well, thank you all for being here tonight. We might have time for, maybe one question.
One question only?
I think so. We're running really late. Sorry. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I do. I think as a resident taxpayer, you should at least give more opportunity to people who came here to sit and listen. My name is Ron Friedman. I want to say that I am a direct recipient of two of the associations here, the AHC and the Lake County Residential Development Corporation for 8-unit townhome development built in 2007. I've served the Townhome Association as president for the last 5 years. I love being in this area. But I want to address a couple of things that Mr. Mayor Hill, you said in your opening, introducing David Northern as the Executive Director of Lake County Housing Authority. You claimed, you stated that he his agency controls $30+ million in funds. And you also mentioned AIM North as a nonprofit that Mr. Northern developed and created. I would like to ask, what is some of the accountability that you, Mr. Northern, have as the Executive Director of a housing authority that has a commissioners that approved an all-expense paid trip to Cape Coast, South Africa at or about 2010, gave you a company credit card of $30,000 that you used within the first year and a half after you became Executive Director.
Do you have a question actually about
I do
the
have a
programs
question,
here?
yes, I do have a question.
There'll be a question about the programs, please. We're not here to intimidate anyone or anyone to stop.
I'm not intimidated, I have a question. Are you closing it down?
If you're not going to ask a question, yes, I will close it
Do I
down.
have a time limit here?
Pardon?
Do I have a time limit to finish asking my question?
Well, you're getting way off base as far as you're not asking a question, you're making statements. So if you have a question, please ask a question.
My question is, Mr. Northern, as the Executive Director of Lake County Housing Authority, correct me if I'm wrong, but you are also the treasurer. Where's the accountability and the opportunity that you have of possibly misusing $30 million under your care and guidance without the proper checks and balances? I know for a fact that the former Comptroller Hemant Shah is no longer Comptroller. He left around 2010. So if you are in fact the Treasurer and the Executive Director with the strings, the purse strings, for more than $30 million, can you please tell the taxpayers of Lake County how it is that you are held accountable, and including AIM North, which you started with a $75,000 grant or loan from Lake County Housing Authority, which you are Executive Director of. How is that not a conflict of interest?
Could I just address 2 minutes?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, first as I said, and that's an interesting question. Some of the facts you mentioned, it's not all the way correct, but based to your point is that by state law, the Executive Director is also the Treasurer of the Housing Authority. You have a board that's appointed by the officiating government. Because I handle the day-to-day operations of the organization, I'm considered the treasurer for the board. I don't vote as a board member, but I'm the treasurer because I sign checks and things like that. Secondly, earlier I mentioned, Mayor, that I'm happy. I have a great staff. The $32 million organization that serves over 13,000 citizens, and we're a high-performing organization by HUD. What that means is that HUD evaluated our programs top to bottom, financially, structurally, and said, your organization is a high-performing organization. We've had independent auditor come in every year and audit us. We had one audit finding, and that was because we didn't submit a report on time.
Is that audit online?
That audit is online, and you probably have it already from a FOIA previously, but you can more than welcome to re-FOIA it. But so, as far as the checks and balances, I have a finance director. We have independent auditors. I have a board members. HUD oversees us, and the only reason, again, that I'm the treasurer is because that's part of the state law that the housing authority's executive director is the treasurer. The reason we created a not-for-profit because housing authorities, as I said earlier, housing authorities have certain limits that they can have in terms of renting units or Section 8. I can create units or purchase HUD dollar homes through the use of my not-for-profit. So having a not-for-profit come on board to help facilitate the activities of the housing authority, that's why the housing authority loaned the not-for-profit money to get started so it can go. As I mentioned earlier, the Lake County Housing Authority created LCRDC, who is now independent doing their own job. And we also worked and helped create Affordable Housing Commission in the day. So
You replaced the Comptroller since you left in 2010. 2010.
I have a full staff. I have a finance director.
Answer the question.
I have a
Excuse me,
finance
sir.
director.
Sir, you had your question. Let's not keep on with the follow-ups. If you'd like to answer it, that's okay, but
I mean, well, you can call a person a head accountant, you can call them controller, you can call them a finance director. The position we have now is finance director. And the person you talked about that left, he's replaced. And the person is doing a great job. Since he's been gone, we had no audit findings.
somebody else had a question in the back?
Hi, my name is Lisa Rushman. I'm with Avon Township. I'm the supervisor. And as the supervisor, I also sign the checks. I do have a question for you. As people are waiting to get into housing, the township has two main reasons people come in. One is for utilities, the other is for housing. One of the things that I heard you all have, Rob, you have that program that helps with down payment for housing. One of the things, the big thing, and we do not have a program for this, and we don't know of a program, so if you guys know a program, it's going to be great. As they're waiting to get into housing, they rent. And as you know, the rents are really high. Some of these people, their rent is way higher than my mortgage. And when you need a security deposit, that's where they need help. Do any of you have a program to help with security deposit programs?
We don't currently have a program. The Catholic Charities used to have a program, but they ran out of money. And that's always the problem. The money goes so very quickly that as soon as the county appropriate, and that money that was being used for security deposits was through Lake County, and they were either using CDBG or home dollars for that. We're hoping that with the upcoming round, there will be additional money available. But I would always tell you to either check with Lake County or the Community Development Department, or check with Catholic Charities, because they're the agency in the county that has been doing the most.
And Prairie State Legal Services sometimes have some money from people that donated to help with down payments. Because we've been fiscally responsible, we have a down payment assistance program, but it's just for our clients.
Yeah.
We don't, serve outside. But I did want to mention, since you talked about housing, that we're opening our waiting list. So I have a couple flyers out in the back. We'll be opening our Section 8 waiting list that's been closed since 2010. If you can go to our website at www.lakecountyha.org, you'll find all the information about our opening of both our public housing and our Section 8 waiting list. So that should make sure. I think we sent all the townships an email letting them know also.
And that was great news, because we let a lot of folks that we know that are overburdened renters, they're not renting from us, but from other landlords, we let them know that you have that available, or it's coming available.
Yeah. And so if a person become a part of our clients and they need a security deposit, our board identified a certain amount of funds for that, because we had some reserves and we wanted to make sure that our clients receive housing.
I know with the first-time home buyers assistance, Round Lake Beach has helped fund for years through our bonding authority. I think through Buffalo Grove as the main city that handles all that. But it's worked out really well for a lot of people to make purchases and get that home buyers assistance on the down payment, because that's a tough savings to do for most people. So. Well, again, we appreciate everyone being here, and appreciate you coming out tonight and spending the night with us in the village of Round Lake Beach. And as Rob said, we'll be back on November 9th to have another program on housing. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.